Hey kids, ready? Are you ready for chapter 10 of Miss Osborne the Mop? Jody just barely saw Mr. Poteet coming up the lane. How do you think he's going to feel about his house? Shall we find out? All right, here we go. The old man was walking very slowly with his hound dog shuffling along beside him. He was loaded down. Over one arm he carried a great heap of ragged clothes. In his other hand he held a basket full of odds and ends. And on one shoulder, along with the shotgun, hung a bicycle tire. He plodded up the path, looking, as Dill said, like a walking heap of junk. For a while, Jody and Dill stayed behind him, but as he drew near the cabin, they hurried to catch up. It would never do for him and the mop to come face to face alone. "Hello, Mr. Poteet," Dill called out. The old man turned to look at them. "Well, howdy," he exclaimed. "Is that you for a fact, Dill Tracy? You don't look much how you used to." The children stopped in their tracks. They knew why Dill looked different to Mr. Poteet, for on his nose perched a pair of very strong glasses. "I got these here store-bought glasses," he exclaimed. "Can't say they help me see none. They make me look plumb queer. But my sister, she bought 'em for me, said I needed 'em, and I've been a-wearing 'em just to please her. Can't hardly wait to get home and take 'em off. I've been away such a spell, I do truly hanker to get back to my place." He looked lovingly down at his basket. "I got a heap of things whilst I was away. This old flashlight, see, don't need but a bulb and some batteries, and this here bicycle tire just got the least little hole in it." "Goodness," thought Jody, "he sounds just like Dill, and oh dear, now that he has glasses, will he be able to tell the mop is a dust mop?" The mop was inside when they got to the cabin. It looked lovely, Jody thought, all clean and tidy, with a neat garden to one side and morning glory vines beginning to twist up strings that stretched from the ground to the porch roof. And Dill had even propped up the porch so that it no longer listed toward the front. Mr. Poteet, who had been still talking about his new possessions, now looked up and fell silent. He stared unbelievingly through his new glasses, and then he took them off and stared some more. Finally, he put them back on. Jody studied his face. Surely he was pleased with what they had done. Nobody could help liking the way the cabin looked now. "Is this my cabin?" the old man asked uncertainly. Where's all my things?" He walked forward a few steps and looked dazedly around. "Where's all my good things? Where's my bottles and tires and things and my yarbs? Who's done pulled up all my yarbs?" His voice rose to a bellow. The mop came slipping out of the cabin like a gray shadow. She stood on the porch, quite plainly a live dust mop. But Mr. Poteet paid no attention to her. He dropped his bundles and rushed past her into the house. A cry of anguish sounded as he entered the door. Jody ran up and slipped her hand into the mop's. "I think we better go," she said. "I think we'd better leave." The mop looked confused. "Oh, what is it?" she said weakly, and turned back toward the door. Here's the picture. Just then, the old man roared out of the house like a whirlwind and snatched up his gun. "I thought you was supposed to keep them Hadley boys out of my place," he shouted. "You worthless, no-good young'uns. I'll break every bone in your bodies. I'll whip you good." The dog barked, the hen shrieked, and the mop squealed, and the gun went off with a blast like dynamite. "Run!" yelled Dill. "Run, Jody, run!" Jody was ready to run. She was trembling all over. In all her life, no grown-up person had ever screamed at her like that or threatened her so violently, and it scared her to death. But the mop. She couldn't leave the mop with Mr. Poteet. Jody reached out and seized the mop by her skinny middle and ran for all she was worth. She ran up the mountain. She should perhaps have run toward the path, but she didn't think of that. Her legs just buzzed along in what seemed the safest direction. In her hand, the mop twisted and shook. "Put me down," she gasped. "Put me down." But Jody ran on heedlessly, banging the unfortunate mop against bushes and brush. And then behind her, she heard footsteps. "Oh, oh, oh," she gasped. She twisted her head to get a glimpse of her pursuer, stumbling and nearly fell, and dropped the mop. The mop tumbled into the huckleberry bushes, squeaking indignantly. "Oh, come here, entreated Jody, grabbing her. "Hurry, hurry." The mop clutched at the bushes, pulling herself out of reach. "No, no," she wailed. "I won't be carried. It's undignified. No, no." She struggled to her feet and scurried ahead up the shaly slope. "Jody!" yelled Dill behind them. Jody didn't answer. She leaped after the mop, and the mop's little legs blurred as she increased her speed. Her tall body leaned dangerously forward. Suddenly, her foot slipped into a crevice of the rock. She threw herself backward. There was a sudden loud snap and a faint shriek. Jody halted and stared in horror. There lay the mop with a great crack running slantwise almost the whole length of her handle body. Dill bounded up and seized one of the mop's hands. "Are you all right?" he cried. The mop moaned. "My heart," she said feebly. "My heart is broken. I shall die." "It's not your heart," exclaimed Dill. "You're just a little cracked." "It is my heart," insisted the mop. "When it comes to hearts, cracked or broken doesn't make much of a difference." "But don't die," begged Jody, wringing her hands. "I shall die if I want to," answered the mop tartly. "I have no desire to go on living with a broken heart." And she sighed deeply and let her head flop pitifully to one side. Jody knelt beside the mop. "Don't die," she whimpered. "Oh, please don't die. I'd rather you be just a dust mop again. Be a dust mop. Oh, be a dust mop." On the sunlit mountainside, the wind sighed in the shattered trees. Jody could hear her own breathing and Dill's. On the rocky earth between them was a dust mop, a plain, ordinary dust mop with a split handle. "Gee," whispered Dill, "you got your power back, Jody. You can work miracles again." Jody burst into tears. "Oh, for Pete's sake," said Dill, standing up. "I don't see what you have to be crying for." Jody sobbed louder than ever. "She's dead," she sniffed, "and I liked her." "She isn't dead. She's just a dust mop again," Dill pointed out. "She never was really alive. She was always just a sort of animated dust mop. Good grief, Jody. We've been trying all summer to get rid of her, and now we've done it, and you cry?" He patted her awkwardly on the back. I liked the old mop, too," he went on. "She was fun in a kind of awful way." He grinned. "In fact, this would have been a dull summer without her." "But you had to turn her back. You know you did." Jody wiped her face with her sleeve. I guess so," she admitted and gulped. But let's give her a nice funeral, Dill. I think she'd appreciate it." Dill reflected. "I tell you what," he said slowly. "We could bury her Indian style, up in a tree. I think somebody who was so crazy about nature and birds and stuff the way she was, she would like that." They found a big sugar maple tree, and Dill climbed up in it. Jody broke off some leafy, sweet-smelling branches of a sassafras sapling and handed them to him. He made a sort of platform of them between the two maple limbs. Jody found a long, blossoming honeysuckle vine and twined it around the broken mop handle. And then she handed the dust mop up to Dill, and he laid it on the bed of sassafras leaves. "There," he said when he had climbed down. "You know that's better than going back to live in a broom closet." Jody smiled a little. "I guess so," she said again, and sat down abruptly on the ground. Suddenly she felt very tired and hungry. Dill handed her 2 sassafras leaves. "Turn these into something good to eat," he suggested. "Sassafras leaves are safe. I know. I eat them all the time." Jody stared listlessly. be 2 chocolate sundaes, she said slowly. And there they were in Dill's hands. 2 luscious-looking chocolate sodas, topped with little clouds of whipping cream and shining red cherries. It was lovely sitting there on the side of the mountain, sipping the drinks. Jody spooned in her ice cream and began to feel more cheerful. Dill was right. The mop had ended up in the best way possible. I wonder how come you can do this again, mused Dill. Was it just getting so excited that did it for you, or what? I don't know, Jody answered, but I haven't tried for weeks. Maybe I could have changed the mop back days ago and I just didn't know it. Dill frowned at her. Well, that was dumb, he complained. You should have been trying every day. All this time I might have had a motorbike and no mop. Let's see now. When was it you ran down? Right before Aunt Margaret had all that company, remember, said Jody. It was the day I made the motorbike and you got hurt, and you said you couldn't. She broke off suddenly. My glasses, she gasped. It must be my glasses. She snatched them off and stared at them, trying to remember. Because the earpiece got bent that morning, and then I made the mop. And then Aunt Margaret went into Wolftown and took my glasses with her. And all those times I did try to turn the mop back, the glasses were in Wolftown being fixed. Dill took the ugly black-rimmed spectacles in his hand and turned them over and over. Who would have thought it? He murmured at last. Here, let's prove it. We can't just leave the empty soda glasses lying around. Turn them back into leaves. Jody drew her brows together as she stared at the empty soda containers that Dill was holding and thought hard about sassafras leaves. Be leaves, she commanded. But nothing happened. Now put your specs back on, urged Dill. Don't call them specs, snapped Jody. But she slipped them on and tried once more. Be sassafras leaves, she commanded. And Dill stood there holding 2 limp, mitten-shaped leaves in his palms and looking rather silly. Wow, he exclaimed. To think it was as simple as that. How come we didn't figure it out sooner? I don't know, said Jody. Anyway, it doesn't matter now. Let's go home. Suddenly, her hand flew to her mouth. Mr. Poteet, what happened to him? I thought I heard him running up the mountain for us. Dill grinned. Not Mr. Poteet. He doesn't run anywhere. That must have been me you heard. Boy, I sort of had an idea he was going to be mad about all that cleaning up. He likes things dirty and messy. He's used to it. Jody looked contrite. Well, we couldn't have done anything else with the mop and charged the way she got to be, she said thoughtfully. And I guess I sort of agreed with her. It seems so sad to think of him living up here, all by himself, not able to see very well and nobody to take care of him. That awful cabin, and nothing to eat but moldy cornmeal and sad potatoes? She brightened a little. Maybe he'll get used to things being clean and get to like it that way. But when they passed Mr. Poteet's cabin and quietly retrieved the lunch basket they had left at the ledge of the clearing, she decided such a thing would never come about. The place already had a grimy, untidy air. From inside the house, Mr. Poteet's voice could be heard in a steady complaint. The flour sack curtains had been jerked from the windows. The bicycle tires and 2 old jars lay in the clearing, and the old clothes he had brought with him spilled off the edge of the porch into the dust. The morning glory strings had been broken, and the little plants lay wilting in the dust. Dill looked at Jody and grinned. It won't take him long to get back into its old shape, he whispered. And they turned and went on down the path. I'm sorry about his yarbs, said Jody. If I'd known they were his yarbs, maybe we could have persuaded the mop to leave them growing. Oh, those things grow all over the mountain, Dill reassured her. He can find lots of them without any trouble. Besides, most of them are just weeds and hard to get rid of. He'll probably have a yard full of them again by the end of the summer. He made a face. What I hate is all that money we put into scrub brushes and turnip seed that's going to waste, he went on. Oh, well, maybe the chickens will enjoy the garden. When they got back to the house, Aunt Margaret was amazed to see them home so early. I thought perhaps you were under some kind of spell and couldn't be seen around here until after while the sun was shining, she said. You leave at daybreak and don't get back till dark practically. What's happened? Nothing, said Dill. We just got tired of playing up there. There's the mailman. I'll go get the mail. Dill had a letter from Uncle Andrew. It had a check for $10 in it, for you and Jody to have fun with this summer. The turnip seed and some over, Dill whispered to Jody. But Jody's letter was from Mother. Grandmother was so much better. Mother was coming to the mountains. I want you to come to town and meet me Wednesday morning, Mother wrote. Wednesday, thought Jody. Why, that's tomorrow. We'll do some shopping and have lunch, the letter went on. And I'll have a surprise for you, so be prepared. Chapter 11. What do you think the surprise is?